One of the first things we're going to want to do for this bulkhead is make a pattern before we cut the mini cell foam. What's helpful when you make the pattern is this is called a contour gauge, and you can get this at any hardware store. It's about $12. Okay, so I'm taking this contour gauge and transferring the shape of the hull to this cardboard pattern so that I can then transfer that to the mini cell foam with the channel. I'm moving up the hull, and as you can see, I'm kind of marking off where I'm leaving off, and I'm right here and I'm going around, and then I'm taking this over to my cardboard, and as you can see, I'm transferring that shape, and when I'm done, I'll have this entire hull, or this shape of the hull here. Okay, so there it is. That's the shape of the hull onto the cardboard. We're going to go ahead and cut that out, and then we'll test fit it and see how that pattern fits for that bulkhead. As you can see, I have half the pattern here. If you recall, I cut the pattern in half, and I get the fit that I want by adding these extensions and things, and then I tape it down. And by the way, I realize this looks pretty bad right here. I ripped this part off and used it for the final pattern, as I'll show you in a minute, but when I had it here, it fit pretty good. But for illustration purposes, you take half the pattern, get it to fit the way you want on the bottom of the kayak, tape it down so it's not going to move, and then you're going to flip the kayak upside down, and you're going to do the top half, and then you're going to tape the two together. Let me illustrate that for you. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, now I'm going to fit this top half in here while I've got kayak upside down so that gravity's working for me. Now I would do this before I had this other half in here. I would go ahead and get this to fit. Then to put the two halves together, I would work it so that I've got them just about where I want them. I would mark it with a pencil, and then I would tape the two halves together to get a complete pattern. And so here's the pattern that I used to piece it together inside the kayak, and then I took that pattern and I made another one which is a better fit, and this is the one that I will use to cut the mini cell foam that I'm going to use to make the bulkhead. And as you can see, this pattern is a much better fit inside of the kayak than the first one that I made, that I used to adjust and to make this final pattern. And this is the pattern that, as I said, we'll use to cut the mini cell foam to make the actual bulkhead. Well, the mini cell foam has arrived, and we're ready to go ahead and use our pattern and cut our bulkhead from this mini cell foam. I checked the compression on this, and it's just, if you really push it, maybe a quarter inch, probably more likely an eighth. So I'm gonna cut this oversized, probably about a quarter inch maybe. I might have to scale it back from there. So when I draw this, when I make this pattern on here, I'm going to cut outside the line. I think that will give me just the right amount of oversize that I need, and then it'll compress when I put it into the kayak, and that should give me a good tight fit. Probably gonna, as you can see, is a pretty substantial block of foam. If I try to cut this with a carpet knife, it's going to be a rather difficult, and the edge would probably be pretty ratty looking, so I'm actually going to try to cut this with a bandsaw. We'll see how that works out. Okay, so there you have the finished mini cell bulkhead cut from our pattern, and we'll start getting that installed on the kayak. We're ready now to install this bulkhead. We've cut it out of the mini cell foam. You may also notice that the hatch has been installed. If you want to see the video on the install for this hatch, just go to YouTube, search under C. Owens MI hatch install. You should find it. I'll also at the end of this video put it up on the credits so you can find it that way. What we're going to do is put the H2 glue on the bottom of this, about halfway up to here on this side, and then over up to here. And then you can see that I've drawn a line. I've already put this in here and test fitted it. It fits real nice. The pattern worked quite well. And you can see that I've roughed this up with sandpaper. And I'm going to put the glue in here where I've marked this area. I'm going to put it on this surface, give it some time to tack up. It doesn't take long with that H2 glue. That glue is kind of like Formica. Once the two surfaces touch, you don't have a lot of maneuverability. It's pretty much set. Because of that, that's the reason I'm only going to glue on the bottom, because that will allow me to put this in here and make contact with the bottom and then rock this back into place. If I put the glue up here on the top and on the top of the kayak, I'm afraid that when I went to rock that back, the minute it got into that a little bit, the two glue surfaces would hit and I would not get any further. So again, if I get water up past here, I got different problems, so I'm not worried about it. What I will do is put it back up there. I will put some glue up here, but I'm going to put it in wet, so it'll squish in there and slide in there, and then that will set up okay. Also, I'm going to go around the whole thing anyway with E89 silicone, so I'm going to have a good watertight fit, but I think that this approach is the best way to get this in here rather than trying to glue this all the way around. So that's pretty much it. The bulkhead's installed. You can see the sealant around the edge there, which is still curing. When it's all cured, I'll flip the kayak over and do the top half. And I've done that from both sides. And probably don't know if you can see it, but I've also sealed it from the hatch side as well. So that's pretty much the bulkhead and the hatch install.